Station 51, engine 27, engine 32, truck 105.
You're listening to The Fire Break with Steve Wolf.
Welcome back to The Fire Break. As you know, my name is Steve Wolf. I'm the host of The Fire Break, and The Fire Break is sponsored by, you guessed it, Team Wildfire, who's been making this show possible for more than 200 episodes now. I can't believe that there are 200 people out there who want to talk about fire. There's probably thousands. I just haven't met all of you yet. But certainly foremost on that list is Patric Douglas, who's joining me today, who my LinkedIn buddies will all recognize as a very active fire conversation participant. Welcome to the show today. How are you today, Patric?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm great as always. Is what I refer to as 6 feet over.
Yeah.
It's the alternative, even though I'm not actually 6 feet tall. You know, it works well as a phrase, right?
It does. It does.
So what are you working on these days that that fire people would want to know about?
Yeah. So I kind of jumped both feet into the drone space, right? It for me, it's the most exciting space for early interdiction. I live in the Pacific Northwest. I've lived up here for 30 years. So between California, Oregon, and Washington State. So we call that the fire corridor. And
so which one do you like best?
Not
on the spot or anything, but
Oregon. Gotta love
Oregon,
it. Yeah. My hometown is Bend, Oregon. Shout out to those guys. Great skiing, great everything. But we are literally in a tinderbox up here. And every year.
Tinderbox.
Tinderbox.
Okay. I heard dinnerbox. I think I must be.
You did. Yeah. So like every year the fires just get worse, and more erratic. And we just had one outside of Sisters that started at, nice little spark, could have been manageable, went to 17,000 acres in 48 hours.
Wow.
Like unheard of.
When we say that fires are getting worse, that's our human-centric point of view. From the fire's point of view, they might think they're doing better every year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're being well fed. Let's put it that way.
Right.
But up here talking to incident commanders, there are some basics that they've been able to rely on for years. If there's a water break, they can rely on that. It won't catch on fire. The black, they've always relied on the black. It won't reignite, or if it does, it'll go slowly. All that's changing.
None of the rules apply anymore. Right.
Yeah. The last two fire seasons, the black has been catching on fire with an intensity that scared the daylights out of everybody. So we're really in unprecedented, an unprecedented time. And you can see the trend. It's just getting worse. Where fire and myself intersected was paradise. That was really up until that point for the 20 years that I'd been up here in Oregon. Fire for me had always been, that was a close call, or hey, look at those really cool aircraft, or hey, I know all these guys that go out and fight the line and they have great stories. But it was always a other thing. And I, during the period of time that I owned two helicopter companies, we got called into Paradise to drop some equipment in there. I had the opportunity to be in downtown Paradise on the ground, observing, and two things got me. And this is really where it sent me home on this. The first was downtown Paradise is a 4-lane. And there were cars in the center of that 4-lane that the engine blocks had melted out completely.
My goodness. What's
like the aluminum engine block. So I remember Googling that when I got back to the fire camp, and I was like, what temperature does, 1,600 degrees. So in a 4-lane in downtown Paradise, it was over 1,600 sustained to melt an entire engine block out of a car. And then the other thing was more personal. We came across a girl in a hazmat suit as part of a 3-man team. They were combing through the wreckage. This is before we knew that 80 people had died there. Mm-hmm. And she was kind of slumped on the side of the road. We gave her some water, and I said, how are things going? And she said very quietly, we know where the bodies are now. And that was the first indication to me that this fire had really gotten out of control and was really bad. And so I said, bodies? And she said, yeah, they're in the bathtubs. So in the last few moments of desperation, people who were living in Paradise turned on the faucet, filled their bathtubs up, and hoped to ride it out as their house burned around them. That changed the paradigm for fire for me from an other thing, right? Yeah. To we need a solution here. right? We do need a solution. This is the on the ground stuff. And so since that time, we had the Lion's Head fire, which went down into the wet side of the Oregon range, which you should never have done, burned out a bunch of communities out there. We've had, the lightning strike fire that we just had out here at the Rogue River Valley. It's still burning, right? It's snowing there right now, and it's still burning. Wow. So fire for me is personal. And so you asked what I'm working on. I'm working with a number of up and coming drone companies, and I'm working with a number of solutions with next generation fire suppressants, because the Fostech won't do it, won't cut it. No. Every single drop, if we're going to go to drones, every single drop has to be far more powerful than water. So it's an additive. And there's some great companies out there that are really standing up and really addressing this head on. What my company is in the process of doing is working on the biggest piece of this, in my mind, is the logistics piece. How are these drones going to deploy, and how fast can we get their turnaround time? Because let's face it, drones, if you have a gas turbine drone or you've got an electric drone, they're all limited in range. So every drop has to be far more effective, and the turnaround times have to be like Formula One. So how do we do that? Right. Well, we standardize it. Yeah, we standardize it. So my team's kind of working on that standardization piece.
So you have a module and it has the fuel and the retardant, and you just swap out the box, or?
Yeah, you pump into the box. The turnaround time is 15 seconds.
Okay.
You refill. That's so the drone lifts off and heads out again. It strikes me that there are three main bottlenecks to this whole drone idea. The first is the decision between electric and gas turbine. For me, right. It's an easy one to pick. The physics are against batteries right now. Right. And the duration is against batteries. So there are some people working on that, and I think they're looking at next generation batteries, but I'm sorry, we need it now, right? So the gas turbine is the winner, so I'm kind of putting my energy there. The second is, again, as I was saying, retardant. Water's not going to cut it, not at 100 gallons or 200 gallons per drop. It's just not. Even in a swarm scenario, water's not going to cut it. So we need next generation additives, and it has to be a powder. Just because the systems that are being built are going to be global, right? So right. You could ship a powder, you can't ship a liquid. World, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And everywhere has water, so you can do an additive to that. And then obviously the third, component to this is the tech integration bottleneck, which is, legendary right now, or adoption. That's another one. So I really see this going in a two-step. I think if drones are going to get adopted by incident commanders, they're going to have to see it being used somewhere else, and that's an FSAS, fire as a service.
Yep.
And to that end, I was at the Oregon Industries Council, Forest Council conference here in Oregon with like a who's who of the private timberlands, right? So if you just look at like a Weyerhaeuser or so, one of those guys, they've got about 18 million acres of private timberland. And they were there to kind of hear from the politicians. And one of the questions that was asked, I think not too bluntly, was, when the next big fire comes along and comes after our timber, will the state resources be there for it? And the answer was really surprising. In politician speak, they basically said, no, you're on your own. We don't have the money for this anymore.
Wow.
It wasn't that blatant, but you could see everybody in the room just start to get a little bit more nervous.
Yeah, and it feels a little short-sighted based on the amount of revenue and employment that a company like that provides. You'd want to create a sheltered space for their company to exist.
You would, but the state can't pick up the insurance for a wildland fire that goes through their property. They just can't. They'll fight it. But will they be successful with it? The last 10 fires have shown us that they probably won't be. Yeah. Right. So
and we need economic motive there either, right? I mean,
right. There isn't. It's a
net expense.
Yeah. It's a net loss for the state. So this opens up the window for FSAS, right? This opens up the window for very smart two-step companies. The first step, obviously, is on the ground sensing of fires, so you can get to them faster, and then a drone company to come in and just say, yeah, we got your back. we got this whole thing mapped out. Next fire, we're going to start hitting it before it even starts to smoke. So I think we're in this great window here where the pressures on the wildland interface, private timberlands, private structures, resorts is so great, and the size of the scope of the scale of thing is so great that we're now leaning towards private air attack, private interdiction, early interdiction, which I think will help the state on a state level, fire teams and incident commanders at the end of the day. But I think, 10 years ago, this wasn't the case. So we're at this nexus, and that's where I'm sitting right now, talking to all of the top players, ACC Innovations in Europe, Baxter Aerospace, Griffin has got a really interesting drone going on. Phoenix in the United States, they've got the Ultra 2XL. It's a coaxial. It's a really interesting looking aircraft. And then you've got, my favorites, FireSwarm Solutions out of Canada. We're working with ACC Innovations. That's a heavy lift drone. They're the stalking horse, I think.
Turn into
really,
400 kilogram?
Yeah. And or better, depending on the air conditions, temperatures, altitude. But as a gas turbine, I don't think there's anything else on the market that is even comes close to it. And it's just an interesting looking aircraft, And then, talking to folks like Komodo Fire, they've got great additives. Blaze Tamer out of South Africa, another great additive. And then Strong Water, down out of Southern California. And then topping all of this, one of my favorites in this whole space is SenseNet, again, out of Canada. Canada seems to be really, BC, British Columbia, has really got a handle on this. And they are charging ahead with innovation and thoughts in this space. But SenseNet, without a doubt, they are ready for market. They need scalability, and I think they're running up against cost, right? Mm-hmm. It's fire could happen here, so why would we want to put the expense out? And I think you're probably seeing it.
No money for prevention, endless money for suppression.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So
if you know that about human nature, and you have investors, you say, look, we're going to do the smart thing, and we're going to focus on suppression because that's what people will support. Yeah.
So these companies are the the lead techs. I love everything about them. I love their scrappiness. There seems to be in this industry, you probably encountered this yourself. There seems to be the Kitty Hawk group, right? Who are putting it together with glue in their garage, and they've thought this out. And then there's the investor groups who are flash, and like I said, I think earlier we were talking about one that has just planted a $60 million flag into the marketplace of ideas and innovation, right? They're like, boom, we're here.
There's not always a corollary, though, between what's investable and what's practical on the ground.
Yeah.
And as I've watched this space for half a dozen years, it seems like I've seen investment go towards things that you could tell had no real practical value on the ground or weren't needed. And then other areas where technology that was really needed just wasn't appealing to the VC market.
You're talking to an old tech guy who is old enough to have been through the first .com revolution. I was in San Francisco for that, 95 to 99. I can remember a company called Pets.com. A lot of your viewers might remember this company. They had this idea that you could order pet supplies online and it would ship to you. At one point, it was revealed that while they were doing Super Bowl commercials, they were shipping a bag of dog food from Chicago to San Francisco, and it was costing them $200 to ship that bag.
Wow.
But you were getting it for free because you had a coupon, right? This was the Pets.com model. Right. They eventually went out of business spectacularly, just absolutely spectacularly. But they did, again, plant that flag in the whole FedEx and fast shipment industry, and they spurred that whole thing on. So the net result was Amazon being able to, overnight ship or 1 hour ship something to you. That was on the backs of Pets.com, and they're million spend on that company that flamed out. So, when Silicon Valley comes along and they do plant a flag, it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because the knock-on effect from that.
Right.
My fear, and this is just from being in the industry long enough and seeing how they operate, is the old-fashioned pump and dump, right? So you have a valuation. They'll probably go IPO pretty soon. You'll get to a valuation of a couple of $1 billion for the company, and then all of a sudden, all the early investors are out, and that's all based on the flash, if you will, of like this will do. I would love to see a tech company solve for lithium-ion batteries. I really would. Yeah. I mean, I think as you know it, and I'm talking heresy here for every battery-operated drone guy out there. But let me preface this by saying that there's space in here, but I don't think it's that frontline space where a fire kicks off in the Siskiyou National Forest and your drone races out there and drops. Right? Here's why. Lithium-ion batteries have got a heat problem. They really do. Yeah. And ambient temperature for a kickoff fire is about 85 to 100 plus degrees. That's the ambient air temperature you're going to find a really good fire kickoff.
Yeah.
Your efficiency of that battery immediately drops by about 15 to 20%. So your flight time, which was 20 minutes at load, drops down to 12 minutes at load. Then you got to swap out your
very insulated batteries, right?
Yeah, insulated, but then all the batteries that you're charging have to be in a cooled environment. It goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
And you're wasting time when you're swapping out batteries on the ground. So again, unless somebody can show me how a battery drone can work, even in a swarm scenario at a wildland fire, I'm not seeing it. I'm just not. Yeah. But I'd love to. I'd love to have somebody say, yeah, you're dead wrong.
Come out to my shop. We're not playing with lithium ion, but we are playing with some of the same jet engines that we're using on the Storm Cell. Mm-hmm. And we're making essentially a quadcopter with no copter using 4 jet engines for the lift because they're hugely efficient and and very fast. So basically you can get VTOL with a 4 jet engine, a 4 turbine drone.
Yep.
And then, kick those jets sideways and you can easily do 400 miles an hour towards the fire with a 100-gallon payload.
This I like. Again, what's your flight time with load, right? And then what's your flight time when you're in thin air as well? Right. The thin air thing as a
that affects everybody, right? Whether you're rotors or everyone, the thin air.
It does, and it really impacts drones. So we have some things to solve for, I think, in the long haul. I'm not saying that battery is dead. I'm just saying that it probably belongs in an FSAS, right? Like to cover private resort or to cover a stretch of coastline that's going to burn. Wealthy individuals. I did a think piece where every house had like a drone in a box that was attached to the house.
The FireSwarm model.
Yeah. When it kicks off, all of these boxes open. The drone's first task is to spray retardant on the roof of the house, bringing your ember ignitions down. And then the next task, after it's done that task, is to go to a rally point where it now becomes property of the state, and incident commanders can refuel, recharge, and do immediate hardening of the area. That makes a lot of sense to me. That really does for a drone mission.
I like that model.
Yeah, but the model that
fire break construction, etc. The fire break construction should be a chemical activity, not a physical activity.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you get a HOA that's got 500 homes. You've got, let's say at a 15% attrition rate for those drones, you've got 400 drones that you can work with, right?
That's a lot.
Or better. Yeah. That now become incident commanders 400 that he can deploy over and over and over again if there's a base station, a waypoint, if you will, that they'll all land at, and that the support team will be there. That can all be pre-positioned. That can all sit in a warehouse. That can all be ready to go. And I think that scenario is something that I really, really like for battery. But this kind of like more rugged stuff is going to have to be gas turbine. This is no doubt in my mind. And then we got the whole China thing that I don't even know how that's going to shake out, because I didn't mention one single China company here, but there are some great China companies that have drone tech that looks like are going to be like just blocked out of the market for now, And so they're also working on their own solutions. Some of it, I'm sure you've seen, like the Israeli group that has the Home Dome.
Right, Fire Dome.
They're just launching.
Fire Dome was a pre-positioned artillery mortar full of retardant that explodes over the fire.
Yeah, it's like one step over from the old French trebuchet from
that's right,
the 1200s, right?
That's where Gotti Benjamini got the idea, huh?
Yeah, it's an outlier, but it's not bad. And then China has exploding munitions with dry chemicals, right?
Yeah.
We'd never get a wildland team to ever say yes to that for now, but darn it, it's not effective, right? Really is.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure you looked at the X Prize when it came out a year and a half or so ago, right? And they said, like, okay, somewhere within this 400 square miles, there's going to be a real fire, a decoy fire, and you have to detect it, get there, and suppress it within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So this could mean that if you need a couple of minutes for detecting and transmitting that information, that, within 8 minutes, you'd have to cross, up to 40 miles.
Yeah.
Or 35 miles or something, right? Depending on where you start on the square.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would mean basically you're not going to knock that thing out unless you have a cruise missile full of retardant.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's
things that's crazy. And well, maybe that's not crazy.
No, I mean, things are going to have to get like pretty funky out there before we start talking about exploding munitions. I mean, look, let's run this thought pattern. I think that a 60 millimeter mortar with a fuse that's set to detonate above ground, dropping dry retardant on a fire would do it magnificently. It really would. Proximity fuse, and then you make that shell out of cornstarch, like a hardened cornstarch, it's like a hard plastic.
Not a lot of shrapnel.
Yeah. So the shrapnel is actually, and if you want to go one step further, you fill that cornstarch full of wildland seed.
Right.
So every single detonation, dropping the retardant on that site, is actually scattering wildland seed, in that hardened shell that eventually erodes. And so, we could go there if we want to, because that technology is done. Like, we got that.
Right.
We've got to get people to say yes to something like that. And honestly, what a solution, right? We've got trained teams that know how to do that. We've got trained munitions that can do that. We've got trained technology that can do that. We're just repurposing the shell at this point.
That's right.
That's it. And you can hit it 30, 40, 50 times in a matter of minutes.
Right.
So that was an interesting, concept, but we're just never going to get there at this current.
It's weird. The tech is totally there, right? If that ignition point was an SUV full of terrorists, you could hit it from 1,000 miles away all day long.
Yeah.
Right. But when it's an ignition point, the technology's not there. Well, the technology is there. And one of my thoughts
is not there.
Right. Well, is that we have to, if we can get the military to perceive wildfire threats to Americans in the same capacity that they see foreign threats, and they spend military dollars, you'll see the technology ramp 100-fold overnight.
Yeah, that 60 millimeter shell mortar round idea is gold. Like, it wouldn't take much to repurpose a shell and have it drop. But again, it's the marketplace. It's the marketplace of ideas and innovation. The question is the pain point. How deep into the pain point are we going to get? How many insurance companies are going to pull out of the housing market in the West before housing prices start to collapse? And there goes one of the pillars of America, right? Is the housing market. And I think desperation will breed. I think human beings are great at a lot of things. We're not great at foresight, but we are great when our backs are against the wall, right? When the last of us is still standing, somehow this species manages to pull out like the solution. But we've got to get to that point. We have to have our backs against the wall. And I think being here in the West for the last 30 years, I would say that our backs aren't necessarily against the wall, but boy, are we feeling the proximity of that wall. You know?
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you skipped over the point where you owned 2 helicopter companies. Tell me about that part of your life.
Yeah, so my background is it's just been a fairy tale life. I lived in the Virgin Islands in my 20s. I was a rogue and a scoundrel. And then I came to the Bay Area and immediately started working with CBS TV as a producer, and I was also a host on a show called Evening Magazine. And one of the shows was called Dirty Jobs, and this was before Mike Rowe took over from me and took that series to Discovery Channel and became, Mr. Dirty Jobs. One day I had a producer who said, "Hey, there's this guy who's doing sharks at the Farallon Islands." I'm like, "What kind of sharks?" He goes, "White sharks." And I said, let's go. Let's do this show. So we went out with this guy on this vomit comet to the Farallons. And I don't know if anyone's ever been out there. It's like gray water. It smells like seal in the worst way. It was a dark, miserable day with these 9-foot seas, and we were bobbing around with this seal decoy behind us. And all of a sudden, one of those breaks in the cloud and this beam of light, this is a true story, came down right behind the stern of the vessel. And at that precise moment, an 18-foot female came out of the water like a Polaris missile with that decoy in her mouth and just hung there on the back of the boat. And the cameraman's got over my shoulder, and I'm just standing there like a child watching this thing. And it hovered in this beautiful light and then came down like Shamu, and boom, I fell in love. So fast forward 2 years later, I had started a shark diving company that was going to a little tiny island off of Guadalupe, Mexico, where there were at any given time 5 or 6 to 10 white sharks in crystal clear water, and you could go cage diving with them. And I ran that company up to multi-million-dollar operation. And along that journey, obviously, film and TV came. I had a producer reach out and say, "Who's doing sharks at Guadalupe?" I said, "I am." They did 3 shows with us, and I remember sitting on the back deck with the executive producer. I'm like, "So exactly, what is it that you do?" And he told me, and I was like, "Heck, I could do that." So the next year, I was in Washington D.C. pitching shows.
That's great. Wow.
I did a number of really, really good shows with Shark Week as an executive producer. We also worked with their commercial side, brand activation. So we worked with Volkswagen for 2 years. We built a underwater Volkswagen Bug that drove around on the bottom with sharks. We had Gillette came to us, and we did a commercial with 2 guys shaving in a cage. And one guy cuts himself, and then live sharks attack the cage. And that
Great.
in itself is, just to get live sharks to bite on the cage was just like one of those stories. So yeah, the last show that I did was nuclear sharks at Bikini Atoll in the South Pacific. The question that we were asking was, how do the sharks survive America's largest nuclear explosion, which was the Castle Bravo explosion? And it was a mistake. They miscalculated, and it was 5 times bigger than what they thought it would be. And it vaporized an entire island.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it vaporized an entire island and put like a 2,000-foot crater in the hole of the ocean, the floor of the ocean. So we went there to ask, how did the sharks survive that? So we ended up satellite tagging a dozen of these little reef sharks, and found out they were migrating right from island to island, atoll to atoll. But more fascinating, the week after we were there, they got picked up by illegal shark fishermen. And these guys brought them on board, and they found this technology. And so they wore it around their necks. And it was our satellites were picking up these ships that were heading to the Philippines. So we were actually tracking illegal shark fishermen all the way to the Philippines. Yeah. I get restless and bored, so I started 2 helicopter companies up here in the West, Yellowstone Helicopters, and then up here in Bend, Oregon, and then from there got to Fire. So my background is, I get intensely interested in things, and I start pulling people together and resources together to solve for problems. That's what I do.
Right. Well, I think of that like being a great orchestra. What's the guy with the baton? What's the Right. He doesn't know how to play any. He might not know how to play any of the instruments, but as a
Right.
conductor, he knows how to pull the right people together and get what he needs out of them, and you get great product.
Yeah, or as a friend very succinctly told me the other day, he said, "You know what, Patrick, you're just too dumb to understand that it can't be done."
Isn't that how we got to the moon, though?
I think it
And
is.
no
I think
one told him
it
it
is.
couldn't be done.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, for me, this whole drone fire as a service problem is off the shelf. It's a little bit of joy from the regulatory side, but everything is off the shelf. Like we have all the technology there, like you talked about.
Yeah.
You're matching people together, and you're solving for the bottlenecks. And it's a great place to be because 10 years ago this wasn't the case, right? This really wasn't the case. DJI was little handheld drones.
Right.
But we're here with the heavy lift, and so this problem really is just off the shelf and funding. If I want to give a shout out to any VCs that are watching this, 60 million has been pledged for Seneca, and Seneca is going to do some great things with that. But bear in mind, there's some other companies out there that you should be backing at this point. FireSwarm is one of them, and definitely SenseNet is one of them. I would definitely, if I had some money, I'd look into Phoenix USA tomorrow with their coaxial. And then I would also look at Baxter Aerospace and have a long talk with them, and start putting your chips down, right? Because this space is going to be worth billions of dollars down the road, and very soon. It's not like we're talking about the .com one with a pets.com scenario where you're going to be 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 years out, or it may never happen. It is going to happen. Your money is going to get returned, and you can go IPO on this stuff, but you got to get your money in now while you can, because that's going to take these little pieces and cohese them together and give you exactly what you want. And right now, your first client is going to be those 65, 75 million acres of private forest land, and the big players who need you today, right? But they're not going to take a tech that is just half-assed. They're going to need to have a VC behind it. They're going to need to have a name behind it, so they can say, yeah, we're willing to put our timber in your hands. That's where we're at. So,
yeah, and PG&E, the same situation, and military bases as well that are also, Vandenberg gets abandoned every year when the fires come through.
yeah,
And what do you think it costs to move thousands of planes down to New Mexico or wherever they send them, and
yeah,
move the whole staff? I mean, it's a very expensive problem.
We're not solving for hurricane, right? You can't. That's a force of nature.
Well, I don't know. We say that, right? I mean, you're inclined to say that, but we've solved for a lot of other things that people said can't either. So I really doubt the can't word when I hear it.
Unknown caller.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I would love to see somebody solve for hurricane. I really would. I went through one. I went through like Cat 5 in St. Thomas, and there really wasn't any solving for that.
No, not yet. Not yet.
There's like
we might not be able to stop a hurricane, but we could build, hurricane-resistant housing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we can solve for fire. I think we can.
Absolutely.
In my mind, I think we could do a 40% reduction in mega fire just by doing early introduction, early sensing. Right. So if you have all that forest land, for sure, reach out to SenseNet tomorrow and get that set up, because they're sensing fire at the chemical stage, not at the smoke stage. That's their one technology, which is amazing. And as you know, lightning strike fires often lead to tree chimneys where you've got no smoke coming out, but that thing is burning furiously. And that's what happened in the Rogue River. They had 11 trees keel over 4 days later and start 11 different fires over a 30 square mile area. If we'd had a product like SenseNet, we probably could have interdicted half or not better of those. And that fire might have been manageable at that point, instead of blowing up to 18,000 acres in a spectacular run. I mean, I don't know if you tracked it, but that run went over 48 hours, and that was giving it that was just wind driven 48 hours right to the coast. Nothing was stopping that. That was a firewall. So I want to see a day where we get away from that with that kind of investment. I think we'll get there.
Fire guard? out of Israel. They're not tracking the chemical or the smoke; they're tracking the sound emitted by fire.
Yep, I like
Which is
that
nice
too.
because you can be upwind of the fire and still catch the sound.
Yep, I like that too. The remote sensing, and we should also talk about that. The satellites are getting better, but as somebody who has worked with satellites on the shark world, like I've tagged so many white sharks and so many reef sharks, worked with the Argo system and worked with a couple of other systems. I got to tell you, there's always gaps in that. There's always, I mean, they're zooming over large land masses at speed, and then you're hoping that the next one picks up, but there's always gaps.
Yeah.
And until we get to like a 360 24/7, we're not, that remote sensing it's got its limitations. So it's really going to have to be on the ground. It's always going to be on the ground, right? We know that a lightning storm came through, so now we need to be able to pick up those fires and get on them like right away.
Right.
So the tech is there. I mean, it's it's like the $6 million man opener. We have the technology. We can rebuild him, right? You see that aircraft crash, the experimental aircraft crash. You think, oh God, that guy's done for. Then all of a sudden, somebody comes out and says, "We have the technology. We have the technology." That's the thing.
Yeah, right. What
It's
just
just
inspiring show that one.
So, are you going to the November 4th event?
Red Sky event.
Red Sky
Limit will absolutely be there.
Outstanding.
We're bringing our storm cell with us as well.
Outstanding. Yeah, that thing is awesome. I love that it's out there. I love that it's an ambassador for fire. You and I were chatting. You can touch it. You can see it. It works. It does the thing. And it's scalable. Yeah, it's ultimately scalable. I mean, you could build 2,000 or 3,000, and when you're talking about hardening military bases, this would be a perfect addition for that. Or HOAs, or I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Yeah.
Yeah. The military will probably be our first client. They invited us down to Cape Canaveral to view the technology, and now they're funding us to build an autonomous version of it, and then they like that. Big orders come, and the VCs are happy, right?
Yeah. Again,
but you said you can't stop a hurricane, and yet the whole idea behind our technology is building hurricanes on wheels.
Yeah.
Because I felt like as firefighters we attend fires, but weather's really in charge. And as a matter of hierarchy, you can't control the fire until you can control the weather. Yeah. But by using jet engines and then imbuing the exhaust with retardants, you're actually making weather at the fire line. You're controlling what the dominant wind speed and direction is, and then how much, rain essentially, that wind contains. So, right, I think we erroneously measure fire in acres. That's the aftermath, right? Fire is a linear measure because it's that active line where we're watching fuels can turn into fuel oxides. Yeah. And right at that point where the reaction is taking place, the fire is vulnerable. Yeah. Even though it looks massive and whatnot, it's a somewhat fragile chemical reaction. Yeah. Even though it's self-perpetuating, and it's vulnerable to changes in wind direction and saturation.
What do you think about the White House push to fund fire prevention? And
any money and research put into fire tech is good, and probably as much as I hear people say it's not necessary, streamlining the agencies seems to make sense to me, because I don't know if you read the 9/11 report, the failure was really that every agency knew something and nobody knew everything. Right. And in fires, the knowledge is so siloed, right? This agency had this satellite, but this said, and nobody was talking to each other. And so how are you going to build a castle of knowledge when no one releases their bricks? So you put them all together and you build something formidable. And of course, it'll have its inefficiencies, as any federal venture will, but probably less when you don't have to deal with, a million municipal departments, then working through the State Department, and then interagency agreements between different states and different countries. It gets it's almost more of a paper challenge in that point than a physical challenge.
Yeah. I'm excited that there's a center point for this, right? This
Yes,
is coming from Trump's obsession with forests. And as we all know, once he gets obsessed with something, it doesn't go away. Like this is going to be
right,
these windmills and forests. and
right.
I love the fact that this one thing got stuck in his head and will
Yeah,
not go away, and he's throwing resources at it. Like it's one of those things that's kind of like the right president at the right time, because he's willing to unleash the federal government on a problem that he perceives. And
yeah.
that's
It's a
been
real problem.
yeah.
This one, no one thinks is just a perceived problem, but it's an actual physical thing you can smell and touch and feel.
Yeah.
And it's really impacting people.
Yeah.
And I think, of all the presidents, this one would most like to show that private enterprise could solve something better than the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, he's creating the right stage for private enterprise to come in and, basically what FedEx did to the post office,
Right.
privatization could do to fire agencies.
Oh, it will. I mean, it has to. That's the bottom line, because it's reactive right now. It can't be reactive. We're gonna have to get under the hood on this, and we're gonna have to change some hard bitten incident commanders' thought patterns on this thing, and allow for tech, and allow for what's necessary for this, because we can't keep losing patients like this on the table. We just can't.
No.
We've got to have some survivability, and I think it's all there, like we talked about. All the pieces are there. Just
Yeah.
get together and get funding for them, and off you go.
Right. Well, if you have your choice of hospitals, you're not going to go to the one that loses all its patients, right?
No.
So
and I think that's where
in a
where
free
Canada,
market, you can choose to tax your fire. You can opt for Cal Fire. You could opt for a private company to come do it. And if I'm curious about your opinion on the inverse impact of the economics versus the stated goal. That on a the firefighters say, the blacker the burn, the greener the paycheck, right? So everyone makes more money the longer the fire goes. You sell more retardant drops, you sell more dozer line, you sell more meals, you sell more, overtime to firefighters. So the economic incentive is not there, even though at the individual level, I'm sure every firefighter does their absolute best. But systemically, the economic incentive isn't there for rapid suppression. Whereas if a private company says, I'm going to bid this fire, I'll put that fire out for $150 million. Now there's an economic incentive for performance quickly.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. Anytime you have a going concern and fires that are now topping out at $1 billion, for operations, you now have big players who want to see it keep going. It's good business. On the rural side, big fires employ rural America in a big way. Take that away, and now you got a rural America problem. So, that's why I go with the 40% model, because, the big tanker companies, who are at, $18,000 an hour, $15,000 an hour from the moment the phone rings, right? They can still survive at a 60% rate. But that 40% is going to save a lot of paradises. It's going to save a lot of Palisades. It's going to save a lot of lives. And that's the part that I'm talking about. Let them have the wildland. Look, there's a body of work out there that says that we gotta burn this land out anyway, and then rehabilitate it so it's a nice clearer forest, because 100 years of fire suppression got us to this point of unhealthy forests, right?
Right.
Just around here in Bend, Oregon, we've got invasive bark beetles that I call them the silver forest. When you fly over with a helicopter, there's red forest and silver forest. The silver forest are like 2 years of standing lodgepole pine, 80-foot tall standing lodgepole that are dead, and they glow a silver, but it's like thousands of acres of these things because of the bark beetles. And then the red is new invasive. That's this year. A tree has died. An 80-foot lodgepole pine has died. And it's red is the pine needles that have just died. And so you see that kind of advancing red outside of the silver forest. These things are the sign of a very unhealthy ecosystem that needs to burn, right? It has to. You get renewal with that. So yeah, I'm not looking to. I think there's going to be pushback from the entrenched side, like you said. It's good business, but just let's never have another moment where somebody says to somebody else, "We know where the bodies are." Let's never have another moment where you're discovering that somebody's last desperate act was to fill the bathtub as their house burned around them. Let's never have that again, because we have the technology to stop that. So let's do that. Let's start there.
Well, there has to be a will around that, right? Yeah. I mean, just the way it's a desperate act that we see someone try to save themselves in a bathtub when the technology exists. The technology exists to prevent countless other medical maladies that inflict people, malnutrition, lack of education. You know, we have the technology to solve many of these things, but for whatever reason, the will isn't there.
Yeah. Well, you can change will with media. That's something I've learned a long time ago with my tenure at Discovery HBO. Yeah. And if you look at Seneca, they are definitely investing in the media side, right? Yeah. So again, by planting that flag in the marketplace of ideas and innovation, that $60 million flag with the amount of media that I suspect that they're going to throw at this thing, they are going to capture the attention of the public and drive that conversation forward. If there's any good that comes out of that, is that a $60 million ad buy at this stage is probably the greatest thing that we could ever hope for. I don't have 60 million. You don't,
Not this week.
No, not this week. but it's that one mind at a time, but it's really going to be the public. And there's the movie about Paradise is coming out. That I think is going to help the public understand what I understood, which is that, for so many people in the West, fire is that thing that happens. That's smoke in the distance, the ash that falls on your property, those planes that fly over. It's another, it's the smoke that we see, but we don't ever see it on the ground. We don't get that sweaty moment. We don't see what it takes, and we don't see the panic and the devastation afterwards. We may see it in like a picture on the front of a newspaper, or in your news feed on your laptop or your phone, but that's not the same as that acrid taste in your mouth. You know what is that taste? And it's not that taste of like a wildfire that's burned. It's the taste you get from the complex chemicals that's in somebody's garage. Right. All of those chemicals that are burning, and it's in the air, and it burns your lungs, it burns your mouth. That will fundamentally change the public. We need to bring that home to them. We need to be able to show them that. And again, I think, a Seneca can do that. More media can do that. The release of wildland firefighters to produce their own media with cams, and also a full release on the aviation side. I pitched Discovery, and they bought it to do the tanker side. So we went to a couple of tanker companies and said, Discovery's bought this. They're going to do a show. We're going to feature you. It's going to be great. And then they came back and they said, no, we can't. We can't attach any equipment, any camera equipment by law, by contract to our aircraft. We just can't.
We don't have that problem on the storm cell, by the way.
Yeah. Again,
it'll be not only covered in cameras, but covered in meteorological sensors as well. So that every piece of equipment can be a complete weather station, telling you what's happening right there, not what's happening 20 miles away.
Yeah, I would love to see once you're in operation, I'd love to see almost like a Sea Shepherd whale wars with your tech.
I'll send you the show by. In fact, I've got it already.
No, I'm sure you do. You do. But that I mean, it's a great log line, right? In a desperate race against time. That's how it opens up always, and then your team's cameras. I mean, it's just, it's sexy. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. Right. It's doing well and doing good at the same time.
Yeah.
And I have to say, when you talked about the importance of media and the firsthand experience and the value of that and breathing the smoke, while I was upset for the losses that the people incurred directly in Canada during the Big 23 fires, the day that smoke wafted through Wall Street, I thanked God for that. And I said, now that Wall Street and Manhattan, where I grew up, is actually breathing the smoke, and they realize this is not just a remote West Coast issue, it's a global issue.
Yeah.
I thought that was really going to be the beginning of the release of the type of funding and intention that solving this problem will require.
Yeah, look, you never want to wake up and look at an AQI index that says you're worse than Beijing, right? Like that's a benchmark, is like, here's the toilet of the world for air quality, and you're worse than them, right? You're worse than Delhi. It's like, wait a minute, I'm an American, damn it. I shouldn't have to be suffering through this. Yeah, you are. And it's here. Again, it's that first person, I'm experiencing it. It's impacting me. But the true task is to get to that phase that you just talked about. I think we can get there with media. I think that, the big players, the legacy media companies, they're ready to do shows on this. Not just like formulaic, made for TV, or but you want to have like a series on this.
Yeah.
You don't want to do a deep dive into the lives of them. One of the best companies out there is Discovery HBO for this. They can package this up and deliver it to the people that the vast majority of the audiences that are watching this kind of stuff, and they'll eat it up. They really will. But we need to release that footage because it's compelling footage and it's amazing. And I just find it galling right now that that there are rules in place stopping wildland firefighters from posting their stuff online. They're starting to, in regards to it, but it needs to come out en masse, and it needs to be collated and put together in a storyline, fired out. Your company would be like frontline for that. It's a great tech, and it looks good, and it's addressing. I'm looking at the final scene, right? There's a house that hasn't been burned. You cut to the pavement. There's water dripping on the pavement. There's a kid's doll sitting there, and then you cut to the family who are looking at their saved home. And it's kind of like, this is why we're here.
It is why we're here, though. We want that hero moment, and our ambitions are shaped by the media we ingest as we grow up.
I think
when we go to Red Sky next week, we should say how many of you are here because the show Emergency came out in 1973.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Right when that show went on the air, there were 4 paramedics in the United States, and when it went off the air, over 50,000.
Yep, I was living in LA at that time. As a little kid, we were watching that. Yeah, what a great show that was. Yeah,
I'm rewatching the series right now.
Are you? Oh my God! Like the old sound of those old fire trucks as they leave the station. Yeah. It's a classic, right? That's like, that brings up the whole childhood memories. You're right. Yeah, I think again, I always say it's the marketplace of ideas and innovation, right? If you excite that enough, you're going to get innovation out of that. So.
Pretty exciting times.
It really is. It really is. I mean, I've been surprised with the number of people that have been like looking at my think pieces and then reaching out to me and saying, Patrick, you're dead on with that. I'm talking to a NASA administrator this week just based on one of my posts, and she's like, I love what you're doing. We're working on a similar problem. How do you standardize the base camp? How do you standardize the suppressants for this? How do you standardize what the drone lifts? Because there's another body of thought out there that they're going to do dip buckets, and I'm just like, no, you're not. No. The pendulum alone, right, is such a it's a trial and a half, and then you're wasting so much valuable time lifting off, going to the water source to fire, back to water source, back to fire, back to water source, then back to base. That's a 30-year time wasted. So you need to have a center mass box that you can drop, lift, go, straight shot, come back, Formula One that thing, and then go out again. And if you're smart about it, in the time that it's recharging, if you're running an electrical system or a battery system, you're recharging the battery with a fast charge as well. So as it nests in, you're recharging. So I think, there are some systemic like issues. The Firebox, basically solves for that Formula One need to be on site quickly, out, back again. And it takes it out of the hands of the development of the drone folks because they're already busy enough. They don't need to be building base stations that has, a built-in air traffic control unit to it. They just don't. What they need is a unified source that they can go to, that they can hook into, fast recharge. Oh yeah, and oh, by the way, we've also thought about air traffic control. So all you got to do is plug in, and now you're into air traffic control. So I think at the end of the day, we'll get there. We really will, and I'm excited to be part of this. I mean, I thought standing up a white shark cage diving company when none of us knew anything about anything, like there wasn't a book in 2000 when we were going to Guadalupe for the first time. There wasn't a great big book that said, "So you want to be a shark diver?" Right? Chapter 1. Right. Here's how you build a shark cage. We literally were going to like Home Depot and getting off the shelf pieces to figure this out. And it was trial by error, sometimes some catastrophic errors, like like moments where you're just like, oh yeah, we probably should have thought. Because these are
that kind of work. I mean, that is really what I think is the essence of America.
Yeah.
Right. Is that just that America? It's called American ingenuity for a reason.
Yeah, wildcatting is another name for it, right? So
skunk works. Right.
I did not think that in my career there would ever be another moment in time that was as exciting as white shark cage diving in America, right? And I could tell you for that 20-year experience, the knock-on effects on that was just unbelievable. Like what the drone folks, the suppression folks, and the tech folks have no idea what's coming. But the next 10 years are going to be the most exciting of your life. The next 20 are going to be, you're going to write a book about it. And everybody who's involved in this space right now has just really no idea what's going to happen. But I'm here to tell you that it's going to be the most exciting moments of your life, the most devastating moments of your life, and then the most exciting moments of your life. Because that's what I experienced with cage diving and white sharks, and conservation that blew out of that, and film and TV that blew out of that. This feels very much like that. There's so much energy behind it, and so much on the ground excitement about it, and so much like collaboration. Every day I'm getting in my email box, I got Israelis that are reaching out to me. I've got South Africans that are reaching out to me. I got Australians that are reaching out to me saying, this Firebox thing, and what's the drone company you're working with, and who do you know that's in this? And I'm just like, I'm weaving those threads together and connecting people, and it's happening. It's happening again. And I never thought at this age in my career there'd be another moment like this, but turns out here it is.
So exciting.
Yeah.
What a gift this conversation has been. I really appreciate your time and the enthusiasm and the energy and the sense of resilience and optimism that you bring to this space. Really,
and to you as well. I mean, I've been following you guys for a while. I think your tech is amazing. I think there's a bright future there. And as the ambassadors, as the people you can touch and feel and watch and get excited about, you're the I hate to even use it. You're like the tech version of the Wienermobile, right? You're everywhere, and everybody wants to be close to it and take pictures of it, right? And that's high praise, by the way. That's not a slam. That's the like, it goes down the road and people stop what they're doing and go, "Oh my God, it's the Wienermobile." It's the same thing. It's that piece of tech or that moment in time that's so unique that people want to stop and look at it and say, "Yeah, I want to be part of that." So, I mean, aside from building something that I think has got legacy behind it, your media focus and your outreach is just unparalleled, and we need it. We need it every day, 24/7.
Yeah, fire has to be top of mind for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, if it was up to me, I'd have 100 of those just on contract, driving around the country, spraying water for people to watch. Right.
Yeah. Right.
That's what I'd do. Every hot fire day in every major city, I'd be spraying water on kids, right, as a service, and then inviting the media to talk about this is what we're doing. And by the way, all those screaming kids who are enjoying it, yeah, we're going to save those kids for their future, right? That's
Right.
The knock-on effect of what you're doing is amazing. So keep doing it, and I really appreciate the time, to come here and talk about this with you. It's great.
Thanks so much, Patrick. The last thing I want to ask you is, you said your inbox is filling up. If people want to be part of the inbox that you're opening every day, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, right now it's LinkedIn. We are going to be launching Firebox as an official company sooner than later. But right now we've been in, heavy development phase, and we're at the 1/3 stage where we've got 1/3 models being lifted and testing all that out. So eventually I'll come back and I'll say, here we are, it's official.
Right.
But in the meantime, you want to get me on LinkedIn, and you can see everybody else who's I'm connected with there, and start the conversation. And I'll see you at Red Sky.
See you, Red Sky. Patric Douglas, thanks so much for joining us today. You've been listening to The Fire Break. I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Boy, if this show didn't inspire you, nothing will. So if you're not inspired right now, don't bother with more episodes. But I know you will, and I'll see you at the next one. Thanks so much. I'm Steve Wolf. We'll see you soon. Take care.
See you guys soon. Bye-bye.